Hey everyone, how's it going? So I've been getting the Sketchbox for a little over a year now. So I figured I would do an unboxing video. This box came a lot earlier than some of the others. I got it a couple days ago and it's only May 31st. This is the June 2025 box. This appears to be the oil pastel box. So that's going to be interesting. I've not used a lot of oil pastels. I messed with them a little bit in college, maybe a little in high school. I don't own any. I guess I do now. I didn't own any. Looks like two separate sets of pastels, some shapers, and paper. What's that back there? This is Stonehenge oil paper. So the Sketchbox paper pads that they send are always really awesome quality. I use them for lots of little projects. Oh, and a little oil pastel sticker. That's nice. So I'm just going to pull everything out of the box, have a quick look at it, and then I will get into the packaging. So the paper feels really nice. It's really hefty. I'm not sure how you say this. Oil pastel. It's a 3-pack. The colors are reddish brown gold, transparent blue, and red gold. These are really beautiful. They feel a little soft too. I can feel them like on my fingers. It's also kind of warm and humid here, so that could be it too. These feel really soft. That gold is really lovely. It says it's red gold. It's just really lovely. This is the Van Gogh oil pastel. It's a 6-piece set. The colors are white, carmine, phthalo blue, yellow, fir green, and blue violet. These are the shapers. They call them the Signature Color Shapers 3 set. I have shapers, but I use them for like polymer clay. I don't know that I've ever used a shaper like painting or drawing. That was the Cup Round Bullet shaper. This one is the Flat Chisel. Apparently you use these to blend and scrape and precisely control the oil pastels after they've been put on the paper. That's what this little brochure they sent me says. I definitely didn't use those when I played with these back in college and high school. So these Van Gogh oil pastels feel really nice. I watched the Sketchbox tutorial mentioned in the pamphlet, and she mentions how these are definitely like firmer, harder, and they are. Like I said, it is warm here today, so these end up, especially as I'm working with them, getting a little bit softer. I'm just kind of testing out the colors, seeing how they move around, testing out the color shapers because I've never really used them before. The Cup Round ends up being my favorite. I use pretty much only that. I'm using the chisel right now and it's not really moving things the way I would expect. I'm not really sure how to use that properly. And then the bullet didn't do, again, these are thin layers. I hadn't layered anything up super heavily. So I just kind of left it be. Now these are gorgeous. These are super soft and really pretty. They're kind of shimmery. They're gorgeous. I can see myself using them on like a future project or a mixed media project. So I just did a rough sketch of like the side profile of a face. I didn't want to get anything too complicated. I just kind of wanted to see if I could, make these work for me. I work on a lot of people and faces and things like that, so I wanted to see if this was something that I would enjoy working with in like my own personal work. They had fruits as the challenge. I wasn't feeling making fruit right now, so I just tried for a side profile of a face. These go on really nicely. I don't know. I always kind of anticipated oil pastels feeling like crayons, and they don't. They feel like an oil medium. I've messed with oil paint a little bit, but I don't have a ton of experience with oil medium. I don't really know what I was expecting, but they definitely go on, like depending on the pressure that you apply, they definitely go on like thicker. They're almost paint-like whenever they like warm up. I'm not really sure if it's better to go dark to light or light to dark with oil pastels yet. They layer really nicely, so I don't know if it entirely matters. They actually layer a lot nicer than I thought they would too. I was kind of expecting them to, I don't know, push each other out of the way, push one color out of the way for the other, or like lift the color a little bit. Like I said, I used them a little bit in college and maybe they just were a lesser quality, but they definitely lifted, and that's what I was expecting to happen here. These didn't really do that. I was able to kind of cover and smooth and I don't know, blend stuff out a lot more than I had anticipated. I'm actually really enjoying using them. I think they're very cool. I think I would like to test them out on a few more things. For my maiden voyage with oil pastels, I think it was like a bit of a learning curve. It was definitely a little bit rough to figure out how to push medium around rather than just cover it up or blend it like I do with painting. But it was a very cool process. I kept losing the shape of her nose and the position of her lips, so I kind of redid those about 100 times. I think the proportions are a little bit off on this face, but that's okay. I'm trying a new medium and I'm just going to roll with it. Definitely a learning curve. Definitely a learning curve if you've never used oil pastels before. I've been doing art most of my life and I've messed with a little bit of everything. But I've never tried to complete a piece or do even like a small one. I've only ever just doodled or done figure drawing with pastels. So this was definitely an interesting project. Just getting a feel for them, I see a lot of potential here. I think that if you I think if you're used to painting or drawing or doing literally anything else, there's going to be a learning curve. It's hard to get precise lines, not just because of how broad the sticks are, they're not really pointed, but also because of how soft the medium is. Like I mentioned before, as I was working with them, they kind of like melted away in my hand a little bit. Not melted away, but they got softer as I was holding them. Maybe I was just pushing too hard. I'm not sure. I did use a little bit of that reddish brown gold on the lips because I was having trouble getting like the darkness or definition in the lips that I wanted. I didn't use a ton of the metallic because when I used the red gold on the lips there, it was like, I think it was a different color and effect than I expected. But it definitely went on very smooth and it went a little bit farther, but it also lifted more whenever I used the shaper tools on it. So I tried to be very sparing and then it got a little smudgy around the mouth because of how soft they are. I thought it was very cool. I think it would be cool to use the metallic ones in a different situation. I did end up going in with the violet color to add some definition and layer in a little bit darker shadow, and it worked really, really nicely. These feel very smooth and they were really easy to work with. Like I said, there's a learning curve, but it was simpler than I expected. I was able to do this in a fairly short amount of time. I was expecting to be here for hours trying to work out how to lay these out, but it was really smooth. I think it's really just going to be trial and error. Now that purple is really beautiful. It made the shadows look really nice. The white was doing a ton of heavy lifting, not just with lightening, but also smoothing out and mixing the colors. I did see in I looked up a couple other tutorials so that I could have some idea what I was doing. And apparently that's a pretty common technique, is using the white to kind of mix and blend colors. I did try and do that. Something I noticed is that as I was layering up colors, there was a bit of like crumbliness where it was like lifting. So you have to be careful with the like little pieces of oil pastel. So if you go in with the color shapers like right in front of her mouth there, you get a bit of a smudge if you get one of those like hunks of colors that's just sitting on the page, maybe rolled up in some white that you didn't notice. but it's easy enough to cover back up with white or another color. I went in with my fingers to try and smooth everything out. The color shaper alone was a little bit rough, so maybe I would get maybe some larger shapers. Like I said, I have a few of my own, but I use them primarily for clay, but maybe some larger shapers would help with like this smoothing it out. I also sometimes wonder, when I was working on this, sometimes wondered if the paper, like the paper blenders for pencils, would work well with this. I mean, you wouldn't be able to really wipe them off, so you'd kind of be stuck unless you know, scraped it or sanded it down. But maybe I think it's definitely worth trying. I used, because I didn't use much of the metallic pastels, I tried to add some in the background and it ended up just being really very muddy. And it took me a while to kind of work it out. I think it was adding in the reddish brown gold because it was a lot more brown than I had anticipated. It would have been cool to use some of that in her skin tone because it had a very skin tony color. I think I was looking at it as just a metallic rather than like a working color, if that makes any sense. And I think it would have made an excellent skin tone. So maybe that's something I'll try next time. Anyways, I had a lot of fun working with these. There is a bit of a learning curve, but I think it's worth it. Check out Sketchbox. I love trying new art supplies. And this is, by the way, not sponsored at all. I pay for these sketch boxes. I just really like trying new art supplies. I think it's worth it if you're somebody who's interested in crafting or just trying out new stuff. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe if this is content that you're interested in. And have a nice weekend, everybody.